Hello folks, welcome to another Fluent UI React training. In this lesson we are going to learn about Griffel, CSS ingest engine used in Fluent UI React v9. We will also learn how to style Fluent UI React components, and we are starting now. Okay folks, as I said, Fluent UI React v9 uses Griffel. Griffel is open source CSS ingest engine. You can use it outside of Fluent, but today of course we will focus on Fluent usages. And we are going to talk about APIs called makeStyles, mergeClasses, and a bit about shorthands. So let's jump to our example. And we have some basic tasks there, like let's define background color, let's make font border, and etc. Let's start with that. The first thing that we have there is import from Fluent UI React components. We already have import from makeStyles, we have import for shorthands, so let's try to use it. The first thing that we should do, let's define a style set and name it button. Style set is just an object with styles, and what I can do, I can define background color. This background color will be red. And we will also define colors so our text will be more readable. What we can mention there, we define style set as an object. We have makeStyles. makeStyles returns a React hook. This React hook is used in our component and it returns us classes. So what do we have in classes? Of course, classes that we can apply to a component. So now let's use our style set that we defined, it's named button. And we can see that our button has immediately styles that we defined. That's awesome. Let's make a step further and let's define font weight, and our font weight will be bold. Awesome, it's there. Oh, everything works. So probably with padding it will be simple as it was. And no, nothing gets applied. Why? So if I will jump to property definition, it marks padding as deprecated, and type definition says that we should use shorthands padding function. So first of all, let's try to do what is written there. And indeed we have padding. Awesome. But why? For that we need to jump to Griffel docs. And explanation about why is defined in this note. You can just click on limitations and learn about it. The important thing is that Griffel doesn't support CSS shorthands, and we should always use longhands. For that, to make our developer life easier, Griffel provides a set of functions that are mimicking CSS shorthands. For example, instead of padding, we can use shorthands padding, and all things will work. The same is true for border, for flags, for grid area, for margin, etc. So now let's quickly stop on what are CSS shorthands. And CSS shorthands are basically shorthands for their longhand properties. For example, background can represent background color, background image, and background repeat. As we said before, there is also border. And for example, border width is also a shorthand property. And with this shorthand, we can define styles for all edges. There is explainer, and with Griffel functions that are represented there, return all the things. And these functions, if we will check documentation, padding just returns a set of properties. So this definition for padding just defines an object with styles. That's why here, when we are using it, we are just merging styles. So let's try to improve this shorthand function usage. And let's say that we have padding, vertical padding 24 pixels, and surprisingly, it works. So that's awesome. TLDR there that if you have CSS shorthands, you will need to use these shorthand functions. And we would like to improve there. We have a couple of ideas, and maybe in a half a year, this part of the video will not be relevant, but at a moment of recording, that's what should be done. So now we will start to learn about API called mergeClasses. So our task says that on toggle, we would like to change background color. And for that, let's define some reg state. And we will switch the state to one, so we'll click on a button. So now I'm clicking on a button. Nothing happens. Let's try to improve it a bit, and we will do checked to string. We can see that our button is not checked because, I put exclamation mark in the wrong spot, but now our state changes. So now let's try to define another style set, and we will name button checked. Button checked will define different background color as prescribed in our task, and this background color will be below. So now how we should use it? We will use mergeClasses for that. mergeClasses, based on its name, what it does, it merges classes. And we can write their conditions. So we are writing a condition based on state. And now we can use our set button checked. And now when I'm clicking, background changes. Let's try to also move definition for font weight to button checked. And now when button is checked, we have bold font. When it's not, it's regular font, which is awesome. So what mergeClasses does, it merges classes in order of arguments. So for example, if I will flip, even if we have condition, the single thing that changes is font weight because it's defined in button checked. But as we have button definition that is last in arguments order, we always force color to be red. So now let me restore example. Things are working as they were. And now I will define button orange. And if I will define background color there, and this will be always orange. And I will just write classes build button orange, we can see that our background never changes. Again, because order of arguments matters there. And the last wins. So JavaScript order wins, which is handy for doing overrides in components. And before we will finish with that section, let's jump back to Griffel for a second. I told you about limitations about shorthands, but I haven't noted that Griffel uses Atomic CSS. Atomic CSS is an approach for styling elements by applying utility classes, where each class corresponds to a specific CSS property and value. Let me open Devtools, it will be clear. So we have our button, and this button has some styles that we can see on left. And in Styles Inspector, we can observe that indeed each CSS property and value created a new class name. That's why elements have multiple classes, and you can see similar things in Fluent UI React v9 components. These classes offer reusability across components, and it's a key benefit of Atomic CSS, resulting in smaller CSS files as projects scale. To learn more, I recommend watching our video in Fluent UI Insight series that is dedicated to this topic. Link will be in description. Additionally, another helpful resource is Griffel Playground that contains more pre-created examples for more complex cases, for example, media queries, nested selectors, animations. We will talk about these cases a bit later. For now, we can observe that there is makeStyles code. This makeStyles code has 3 CSS properties that resulted in 3 CSS classes. If I will change value there, we will see that CSS class was updated, output was updated, and it's how you can experiment. And that's it for Atomic CSS. Okay, let's continue, and our next example will involve theming and tokens. So first of all, what are tokens and what is theming? Tokens is a set of colors and some other variables like there. You can find them on Fluent UI doc site. And let me zoom a bit. These tokens are defined by designers, and the benefit of tokens, benefit of usage of tokens, is that they have different values across themes, and these values are meaningful. So if you are developing a custom component, or if you are doing some overrides for an existing component, these tokens will be aligned across themes. And if you're doing theme switch, there is guarantee that your UI will look properly if you use proper tokens, of course. So let's start there, and we have an example, and this example has nothing. The first task that we should do, we should add Fluent provider, and also let's grab white theme, for example. So the first thing that we will do, we will wrap let's wrap the whole thing with our Fluent provider, not only a button itself. Provider defines some basic styles, but for some reason we cannot see them. And the answer is very simple. We should not only inject Fluent provider into our markup, but we should also pass theme. So now we can observe that fonts were changed and maybe color was changed. But what is more important, that in our styles that can be defined by makeStyles function, we can use tokens. So let's import them. Let's define now background color. And instead of using color red, now we will use a neutral background 3. Then let's use color, and token there will be matching, and this will be color neutral foreground 3. And now I can apply classes to a button. Cool, our button has different look indeed. The same true if we will try to apply some style overrides to our Fluent button. So now let's inject button into our markup. Let's write hello world. And we have our button there. Then let's try to apply some override. Our button looks differently. We can say that it's some disabled form of button. So now the last thing that we should do, let's observe what happens in dark theme. So let's copy our example. Now we have 2 examples with 2 descriptions and 4 buttons. But now we will grab web dark theme and apply it to provider. And now what we can observe that, first of all, we have different backgrounds there, but also our buttons look differently. And we will explain plain button because it has obviously less styles. We can see that it has applied neutral foreground and neutral background, but these tokens have one value in white theme and different values in dark theme. And if I will check our page, we can indeed observe this. So that was about theming, some basic theming. If you are inside Microsoft, probably you will get a design spec where you have a set of tokens defined, set of tokens that you should be using for developing components. But if you're outside of Microsoft and using Fluent UI for some, I don't know, pet project or some other usage, then probably this page with color definitions would be extremely helpful for you. Okay, so now let's talk about customization of Fluent components. Let's define a new style set and call it button primary, as we will be styling our button to have a bit different look. Well, the reasonable comments that you can make that button has appearance prop, and I can make primary there. But for sake of example, let's implement primary by ourselves. So the first thing that we will be doing, we will use some tokens, and let's use brand stroke and some disabled form of that. These are not valid tokens for this example, for production usage, of course. But for sake of example, we can use them. So now we need to import tokens object. Let's also define color. And color will be something that have enough contrast, for example, maybe this. So now we have tokens. Now we need to apply classes to our button. So now we have class name, classes, and not .classes, .button primary, of course. Okay, now we have side-by-side buttons. They don't look the same, but that wasn't our intention. Our task says that we need to change icon color, but we don't have icon. So let's grab some icon and use it. Now we have icon there, which is awesome. We can also notice that icon has the same color as text in our button, and we would like to change this. So we will take button icon, we will define color, and we would like to have something that looks significantly different. For example, let's pick this dark orange token. Cool, but our icon is not orange. So how to fix that? From the previous lesson we know about slots. We know that we can pass styles to slots, but for that we need to convert them to longhand form and pass class name prop to it. Here we are, and it's not tokens, it's wrong object, of course it should be classes. Okay, our icon is orange, which is awesome. We also would like to toggle color on click. So the first note is there that don't do this in production. In production, please rely on toggle button that supports all the things by design, and it also have proper defined accessibility behavior. But for sake of example, let's do ugly things. So we will again define our use state. Again, fuzzy. Now, once I will click on a button, we will not on can play, on click. We can invert our state. Here we are. And now we need merge classes to combine style sets. And if checked, we will have classes.button icon checked. So there are two problems highlighted by TypeScript. We don't have imported merge classes. Let's fix that. Another problem that we don't have defined style set for that. So now let's grab some other token from docs and let's use something significantly different. Oh, this berry is awesome. Let's use it. So now when I will toggle this button, we have berry, but let's also use field icon because it's not so intuitive and not so visible in this example that we are changing shape. So now we have the same icon, but it's filled. And now, well, it was wrong token. Let's use green then for better contrast between examples. Now we have green and red, and once we're clicking, they will switch. So to summarize this example, we can style Fluent UI components. We can use makeStyles function to do that. With makeStyles, we can define style sets. We can apply styles conditionally using merge classes. We can pass styles to components, and we can pass styles to component slots. Okay, so now let's explore this example, but let's use some Devtools, some handy Devtools that are available from Griffel. And we can, of course, inspect styles there. We can see that our button, and especially let's explore icon slot. It has some styles. The question is that this class is atomic. Sometimes it can be hard to debug them. So because of that, we have Griffel Devtools. And what we can see there is that we have our button class there that is defined as dark orange background. Once I will tweak it and I will inspect it again, we can see that icon checked overrides this button icon style sets that we defined, and this far is our token. The question is then where get this Griffel Devtools? To get Griffel Devtools, simply visit the Griffel repository on GitHub, where you will find a link located at the top of the README. Once you will click on the link, you will be navigated to Chrome Web Store, where you can download extension either for Chrome or for Edge browsers. This tool includes additional features such as an ability navigating back to source code that makes it exceptionally useful for debugging purposes. So now let's dive deeper with what is called advanced styling, but it's basically a more advanced usage of Griffel. So the first thing that we would like to do is to define pseudo classes, for example, focus, hover behavior, and etc. So let's start with this button that we have there. Here is in markup. We're applying a target set to it. And once I will focus this button, it will have red color. Once I will hover that button, it will have a different color. The reasonable question what to do if I would like to apply focus and hover style to that. We will need to define focus, hover, and color will be green. So now on hover, this has magenta, on focus it has red, and once it's focused and hover is green. So that was about pseudo classes. The next example is about nested selectors. These are about these two examples. Let's check markup first. We have our container A, and inside it has a button. This button has class name, so technically we can style it like this. But this is just for sake of example. We don't recommend to style elements in this way. First of all Fluent components are exposing slots, so you can apply styles directly to that. And second thing that such selectors can be harmful in some cases. So let's try to style it properly. In this case, we were applying just color red. Now we have a different style set just for button. And if I will apply merge classes to keep original class name and apply our, we will have classes.button. Cool. And I need to import mergeClasses too. Now our button is red again. So in some cases, nested selectors are redundant. But let's talk about cases when they are actually useful. And it's an example when I'm hovering container, I'm focusing container, and I would target child for this behavior. How this could be done? We can use hover pseudo selector on container itself and then apply some classes to a nested text. And it's matches markup that we have in that example, which is cool. Small heads up that I should make there, that let's grab previous example. And you can play with that in Playground, where you don't need to apply style to elements, you can just inspect them. So we have space there. Space is important because in this case, it targets a nested element. If I will remove space there, instead of that, we will target element itself. And this element should have button class to have it applied. So be careful, space is important. The next example is about media queries, and let's jump to it. What I prepared there is that our button has by default red color, but under some condition it has blue color. So if I will try to resize page, we can see that once we are facing breakpoint, style is different. And to do that, everything that we need to do is to define media queries. Media queries, again, could be defined as nested objects on a style set. So in this case, if we have max width 468 pixels, then we will apply our color rule. Otherwise, it will be red. And the last case there is about animations. And when I'm talking about animations, of course, I mean CSS keyframes. In Griffel, we have custom syntax for that, and you can define CSS keyframes as a nested object on animationName property. For example, in this case, I'm transitioning from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Basically, it's circling animation, how you can observe there. And I also define the duration of this animation is 5 seconds, and it takes infinite amount of iterations and some timing function to do that. So it's how you can define animation, it's how you can define keyframes. For more complex examples, first of all, you can jump to documentation of Griffel, and you can find all the things described there. For simpler cases, you can jump to tryout, and for example, case with animations is also defined there, and you can immediately see what CSS will be generated. For example, as I said, we have animationName, and we can see that it generated matching keyframe to be used. To wrap up, in this session we learned about Griffel, CSS in JS engine used in Fluent UI React v9. In next sessions we will learn some other aspects of Fluent, so see you there, stay tuned.